And it's funny, with a project like this, you never know how the students are going to react, you never know how things are going to go. And when we showed some of these pictures to the students yesterday, the response was amazing. It was, what's that thing in the corner of the page? Let's see if I can find the train picture. There's a little black splotch, and we had a 10-minute conversation about whether or not it was a dog or whether it was a bear and why it was sitting there on the side of the train road and all the rest of this stuff. And all this contextualizing discussion that was happening around it. So it's also about getting kids excited about history. And in that sense, it's a lot of fun. So when we go back here, what you can do, this here is the public view, okay? This is a finished text, an example of a text that was made by one of our helpers who is from NYU. She teaches writing at NYU, who wrote this text for us. Our idea is to take the Anne of Green Gables text and get the kids to write this stuff based on the research they do at the archives, based on the research they do at the Artifactory, and flush out some of the history of the island from the point of view of a 12-year-old for the audience of other 12-year-olds who can then come in and see it. The work that they write at first, and let me go in and sign in here. Let me try to sign in here. Let me try and sign in here. Love it when this happens. Remember when I said this was still in development? It's possible. No. There we go. Still in development. It's okay. Yay. Okay, so when the students are writing, this is the administrator's view, so there's a lot more sort of stuff that you can do. The first page the students see is this kind of page. So these are the things you can start by doing. You can look at the stuff that's actually from the Anne text. You can browse the e-text, which in this context is all of the stuff that's created. The stuff that the kids write, the pictures that go up, the video that happens. It's text in that total conceptual sense. This is how you start to create things. This is my own stuff that I've done, and this is the stuff that my class has done. So the idea here is to give them a really simple starting point. So that, and when you make that decision, it sort of brings you to, you conceptually made that movement to what you want to start doing. So if you look at my work, for instance, what you're going to see is an e-portfolio. All of the blog, all the posts that I've made are here. All of the audio I've put up is here, all the video, all the images, all the comments I've made on different people's stuff across the site end up under the comment site, and all my drafts are here. Now the way this website is set up, everything the kids do stays internal to their classroom until the teacher goes click, and then it turns public, right? So they start writing drafts. They work with their teacher, they get feedback inside of here, and then it gets promoted forward. Now again, this is our first idea about this. In my last presentation, we were talking about iterative project development. I would be very, very surprised if this exact method was the one we're using in a month's time. I would expect that when Jerry and Marilyn get into this, that we're going to go, you know what? It would work way better if we kind of tweaked it and did it like this. And then we're just going to tweak it and do it like that, because that's the idea here. We're trying to design something that's actually going to work in a classroom. It's not a pie-in-the-sky operation. It's about making it work. But this, all of the work the kids do, every individual student has a page like this that has all of their work on it. So it automatically gathers the portfolio for each student, right? It's key here. So you can look at the site in a bunch of different ways. There's a bunch of different ways you can kind of go into it. The way that you navigate, I'll just do that and then we'll move on here. I don't want to upset your eating too much. If I go into this page, you'll see that there's the entries referring to it and the related entries. So those are entries coming in and entries going out. So if I look at somebody's work, in a traditional linking sense, I need to open up your work and then change it to make a link somewhere else. In this context, if I look at your work and it's related to mine, I post a blog post about this, and it automatically creates the linkings between people's work. So if one student looks at one person's stuff and they decide they want to write something that's related to it, they click on that button and it automatically makes the connections. So that later on, if somebody's reading through it, what they're following are the connections that the students themselves have made. Right? So it's really the layout, the design, the organization is being decided upon based on the choices the kids have made. The hope, at least that's the first run. Again, if that doesn't work, and if it has to go a different way, then it goes a different way. The hope is that what you're going to end up with is very good text written by kids inside of their curriculum, and it's being wrapped into the curriculum, but you end up with a text, a new text, that's designed for the audience that wrote it, right? So that when other 12-year-olds look at it, it's written with them in mind. Too often, we end up with a bunch of people who sit down and try to design curriculum. They're, you know, a bunch of, say, 30 or 40 or 50-year-olds sit in a room and try to decide what exactly it is a 12-year-old is going to find interesting. Trying to invert that model. And because of the power of the publication of this medium, we can actually get the kids to publish it. There's structures around it to make sure that nothing inappropriate goes on, to make sure the kids are safe, and that structure is there. It can be turned on harder or softer depending on how things go, but it allows for them to sort of guide things. So also, any sort of questions you may have about that you want? Hoping Marilyn or Jerry's not going to have too many questions. I hope they weren't surprised by that. Yeah, sure, go ahead, Cormier. One of the things that we're doing is we're taking a snapshot of this website every week. So for those people who are interested, and I'm assuming there won't be too many, but if you are, you can go to a website that we haven't set up yet, but put in week 1, week 2, week 3, and see the website as it was on that day. So that you can flip through the whole progression of it, see how those things are being developed, and actually get a sense for the whole development process. So in terms of research, I think there's going to be a lot of material here. Again, that's going to have to go through the department and all those other things and agreements and all that stuff, but I think there's a lot of possibilities for that. I mean, certainly Sandy's the person to talk to about that. He's the principal investigator. Anybody else? Feelings you'd like to share? Harold Jarkey, why don't you ask me a question?
Not really a question.
Yeah.
Well, and have left it that way to grow organically as opposed to trying to impose a structure on it. And I think for anybody who's building stuff, that's definitely a consideration to keep it simple.
Well, anytime you do a project like this, the question is always how much structure, how much scaffolding are you going to use? If there's no scaffolding, nobody knows what to do, and there's no way to follow any path. And that's why the option we opted for was to create one complete e-text, use that as a model, but not actually create the one that the students are going to be using. So they're going to be able to make those paths whatever way they want. They're not building upon this one. They have this one. This is one way of doing it. Whatever way they do it doesn't necessarily need to be informed by the way that that one was made. It could be. It's a starting point. It's an example. But it doesn't necessarily need to guide them completely. This is one of the other things we're doing. Just going to let this load up here. I really hope this doesn't crash. No laughing. It encourages the server to crash. This is, has anybody here heard of Second Life? Okay, the problem with Second Life, one of the problems with Second Life, is that everything that you put on Second Life is owned by a company named Linden Labs. They also control all the sign-ins and all the personal information of everybody who goes in there. What we've found is an open source version of this that allows you to control everything. So you can sign in, there's my Anne of Green Gables. You can sign in And all the login information, all the user information, all the data that you put up, everything is on your own server. You control the whole deal. So we have, please let up, please let up, please let up. We have complete control over this virtual world that we're making. What you're going to see almost immediately is that this virtual world is not yet 100% ready. So far, I have to put my clothes back. Let me hold on a second here. I'm going to make the sun rise. And you'll see our little Anne here come up in front of your eyes. Don't forget the bloomers. Yes, thank you for your fine help. Okay. There. So there's Anne. Let's take a look at her, shall we? This is my first try, Anne. Yeah, the eyebrows are kind of spiky. So this is this is my first try. It's very pretty. So as you can see, we can walk her around. And there is the picture of the carriage that we saw earlier, right? So we uploaded that in there. What's that? No, she can swim, there's no problem. Now, the fun thing about this is that we can go and hit build, go like these, and we lower to land. And as you can see here, I mean, we're not talking about rocket science here. Lower land. It's not, there's no special technical terms for this. And then we just start lowering the land. So there it goes. So we're creating a little lake here in the middle. So what we're going to do is work this out like the island, okay? Put 3 little villages on the spot of the 3 schools that we're working with. And hopefully make at least one house. And in that house will be the artifacts that the kids will find. So that if you've got a picture of Great Auntie Gertrude, and instead of just having that picture on the screen that you look at it like we did before on the website, you open the door, walk in the house, walk into the living room, and on top of the mantelpiece is a picture of Great Auntie Gertrude. The fun part about this is that when you click on Great Auntie Gertrude, you go either back to the website that has all the other information on it, or you have a pop-up text, again, written by the kids, that explains what this picture is all about. So you're taking history, and hopefully, to some extent, using all the technology to bring it alive.
So you say you have this house on your own server?
Yeah.
So it's not public, your location is not public?
No. No. You need to know that, did you see that number flash up earlier? The HTTP blah, 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 blah that popped up?
So I see your location number at the top there, right?
Yeah, no, that's unless, and I control all the usernames and passwords. So there's no way, there's simply no way. The next level beyond this is that in your class, like this computer here, actually also has OpenSim installed on it. I could unplug this and connect to my computer and run my own virtual world on my desktop. This has 512 megs of RAM in it. This is not a supercomputer. You could do that in your class, not yet. In 6 months, you could do that in your classroom, build your virtual world, and then occasionally connect it with the virtual worlds of other classrooms, and then disconnect them. And then maybe have a larger group, and then not. Or you could just stay and do it by yourself because you have a project that you're working on. I have a project in the UK where we've got 2 universities, one of which has a group of philosophy students, one has a group of art and design students, and they're going to work together to each build an island, one to talk about what it all means, and the other one to talk about how to design it nice and cool in this new space. And once they're at separate universities, they're going to build separate islands, they're going to come together and visit, and then they're going to separate off. You have the privacy if you want it, you have the public if you'd like it. So, for you, make her fly. Although make her fly.
Bloomers are important.
Yeah, you need the bloomers. We're gonna have to do something about that actually. So yeah, I mean, here's the coastline, right? We start carving out a coastline. I took a shot at doing PEI once. Yeah,
So now I just cut out some coastline here. When I walk over to it, you know, there's your coastline. And what's that? Oh, you can do whatever you want. And we're going to change the colors. I mean, it's not going to be PEI unless we change the dirt color to red. So we're going to do that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff we're going to get to, but we're really, really at the beginning. To my knowledge, there is not another school in the world using this right now. The software is in alpha. When I said, I hope it doesn't crash, I hope it doesn't crash, I wasn't kidding. But this is really the cutting edge, right? And it's right here, and it's something that the biggest advantage that we have on this island, after this I'll stop and let you guys get back to your stuff, the biggest advantage on the island is that we can move extraordinarily quickly. You can call, when we started this project, we called the Deputy Minister of Education and got a phone call back in 10 minutes. When we called Guy the first time, we set up a meeting, we went down, we talked about it, but you can move quickly, right? Because everybody knows each other, and you can talk, you can call somebody and get that stuff happening. So I do think that is an advantage of the community, yes. Thank you. Virtual or otherwise, absolutely. Thanks for your attention, guys. And here's the project.